Good evening, good morning, good late evening, good afternoon, wherever you're at. Good wherever you're at. For me, it's good evening. For my wonderful guest, who I'll name in just a second, it's morning for him tomorrow. It's magic.
Living
I've
in the
been so
future.
living in the future, dude. So I've been so excited. I've had this gentleman on one other time, maybe twice. I don't remember. Just
I
kind
think
of
once, yeah.
talking a little bit along with some other authors, and I'm so excited I get him one-on-one to pick his brain. How are you this morning, Josh Walker?
So good, man. Thanks for having me. And
Ah,
I love that track at the start. Like every time I hear it, I just want to hear the rest of the song. It
I
bangs. It's so good.
I love it. Anytime somebody says that, I immediately play that for my wife when I'm done because she's like, "It's too long. It's this and that." I'm like, no, like just wait. We'll get the honest opinion from the people, and it's unequivocally uh, it's positive. So I get to rub it in her face. She's right 99% of the time. So this 1%, I get to take it.
Yeah. Take it. It's so
So
sick.
how has your morning been? We'll start there. How's your morning been?
It's been nice. It's starting to warm up down here in Australia, which is really good. It's been a long time coming. So we're just coming out of winter now.
Hmm.
But yeah, as you can see behind me, it is utter chaos in my room. I'm like packing books and doing that kind of
Hey,
stuff. So the room is completely full, but it's good fun.
yes. Is there any? I think being right in the middle. When is it not like, at least in my life, in the middle of some sort of chaos? But
Oh,
hey,
100%. And we're actually planning on moving house soon as well. So it's just like a mess in here. But yeah.
yeah, dude, moving is on my list. It's like the top two or three things that I hate to do more than anything. Anywho, I'm going to do a little introduction for you. My good
Yep.
buddy, epic fantasy author Joshua Walker. He is based out of, is it Melbourne?
Yeah, Melbourne at the moment. Yeah.
Melbourne, Australia, which I think is just one of the coolest parts about talking to people live, man, is just getting to talk. I would never have had the chance, 50 years ago, this would never have happened. So it's
It's so
just
cool.
incredibly cool to me. And I was lucky enough in January, I believe the 9th, your prequel novella, The Rest to the Gods, was released. This
Yep.
beautiful,
Hey, look at that.
wonderful uh, prequel novella. But here we're going to be talking about, because he's on his book tour for An Exile of Water and Gold, which when I heard that I remember like seeing that title the first time we had talked ever. And I remember mentioning just how incredible that title was. Little did I
Thank
know
you.
how incredible the cover and just everything. I'm just very happy for you, man. How was the experience just dropping your first novel, debut author? How's the feeling right now? What's it feel like?
Oh, it's been wild, honestly. Like the launch day itself just was crazy. Like I was working through launch day, so I was at work, teaching, and in between classes and stuff, I was just jumping on my phone trying to stay on top of messages and things. It was a really humbling experience actually, but I'm just so stoked it's out. Like it's been a long journey to get the book to where it is now. So the fact that it's out there and people can read it, oh, it's just like it's such a good feeling, man. The
Oh,
relief is just insane.
we're definitely going to dive into the journey. In fact, you pretty much just
Yeah.
word by word answered part of a question I have, but we're going to dive deeper first, real quick, because we have a lot of wonderful people here that came to hear all about your book, man. Okay, so who's this
So good.
guy? Oh, that's you. Kenneth Gray, man. It's so good to see you here, brother. Gorgeous cover. Just
Thanks,
look
Kenneth.
at that. Ordered the book. Excited to learn all about his story. Look at that. Oh, look, you're already on top of this. Already responding back in the comments. You're not a
I
rookie.
had a few minutes.
Tim, what's going on? Uh, I thought this too. It's Jeff Brown that did. Uh,
Yeah, it's Jeff Brown. I got it here. Look at this thing. It is
yes.
stunning.
There's
So
something
yeah, Jeff's
about,
done a great job.
well, he's just exploding, by the way, just exploding. Not
Yeah,
that
he
he
is.
hasn't been doing this for a while, but lately, man, it's like every beautiful cover I see, it's like, oh, Jeff Brown done that. But there's something about that classic style where
Oh,
you've got this small, it could be a human, it could be an elf, it could be an animal, looking into this vast,
yeah.
mysterious openness of adventure. And that says, come read me because we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. When I first actually got talking to Jeff, like my inspiration coming from my reading as a younger person, I read lots of like the classics, you know, Wheel of Time and stuff. And Michael Whalen, he was the guy. I just loved his covers. Always have, always will. I love the one that he just released for Stormlight Archive 5. It looks sick.
It does.
Um, and that kind of classic fantasy with the vast expanse. I wanted to capture that, and I knew I'd never get Michael Whalen. And I came across Jeff's artwork, and I was just blown away. And yeah, got in touch with him. He was such a legend.
Dude, so was it a somewhat of a wait? I'm not sure. Like, I'm sure right now it's probably blown up. But back when you started talking to him, how long ago was that? And was it a wait?
Yeah, I emailed him last September, so about a year ago now, and we scheduled our meeting for January of this year. So that was about a 4 month wait. I probably could have seen him earlier, but I wasn't ready either. So it ended up working out well. Yeah, met him in January. He drafted the full artwork in front of me in about 20 minutes, just while we were chatting.
Oh,
It was
wow.
an insane experience. Yeah, like screen share the whole thing. It was so good.
Just knows, through the craft and doing it, how to, talk to get an idea of what, ideas that you're both going to throw at each other, but, mainly what
Yeah.
you want. Was it how do I say this? Was he interested in hearing everything you had to say, all from your point of view, and him kind of trying to adapt to that?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing Jeff's really good at is he's kind of like, look, just throw at me some of the coolest things about your book. It doesn't even need to be story specific, and
Mm.
then I'll try to figure out what's going to be the most marketable option, what's going to look good with text on it, and you know, you kind of just chat it through. And I was telling him about the story, and while I was telling him, he's just like drawing this mountain, starts drawing the tree. I was just like, what is going on? This is so sick. Like it's like popping up before my eyes. It was so cool.
That's
So,
hilarious.
and
So,
yeah,
so I think that's excellent customer service, I guess, is the broad spin. Guys, by the way, my green screen is just absolutely not cooperating. So I
it's all good.
apologize. Um, but anyway, yes, Jeff Brown was definitely somebody I wanted to bring up, and I'm excited to hear that he's so good to his people, man. Um, Sarah Beth, hello. I'm so excited to read this and the prequel. They will both be in my next haul. Incredible.
Yeah, that's
That's so
awesome.
cool. That must be like the finest thing to hear from somebody if you're an author, right?
It's an insane feeling. Like a year ago, you know, I was a nobody, and that's fine. That's part of the journey. And now it's constantly so flattering when someone says, "I want to read your book." It's like, well, you want to read my book? Like I'm just one dude, you know. Like it's so cool. So I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I can understand how that would be somewhat overwhelming. Or I don't know if you're anything like me, but I have a bad case of what is the term in
Like imposter syndrome.
imposter syndrome. Terrible. I didn't even know what that was until like recently, last 6 months. But I've had it
Yeah,
for a while.
yeah.
Do you deal with that?
I'm the same. Yeah, when I was going through the editing process for this book, my editor Sarah Chorn, she's absolutely
Oh,
brilliant. But one day,
gangster.
yeah, isn't she so good? But yeah, she sent me back some notes one week, and some of them were particularly like difficult to get on top of. And so I emailed her back, and I was like, I'm obviously going to do it. Like I trust you. You know, we're killing it so far. But sometimes I just feel like I'm not worth this
Mm.
story. Like, you know, I can't actually live up to what I've created. And she was so kind, man. Like she got me through that whole editing process. Um, just an absolute legend, and like really helped kind of put in perspective that like you know this story will impact people whether I see it or not, and that's the main thing, you know. So
I love that. And first of all, thank you for sharing, man. It's not always easy to share those moments in our life that are somewhat, where we sit and question ourselves. But us as humans,
yeah,
right? Especially creative humans, we do that so well. We always love to look in the mirror and critique ourselves. So thank you for sharing your personal experience.
course, yeah. I mean, I think it's natural for a lot of us writers, yeah? Like, it's
I
part of
feel
the
like if you
process.
go into something and you're just like, you know what, I got this. This is definitely, this is going to be the, maybe it's not the time for you. I don't know. I feel like having somewhat of a doubt of my abilities and wanting to do always better every time I pick up a pen or a paintbrush is
Mhm.
kind of a good thing in some ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. You gotta seek to constantly improve. That's the only way to get
Mm.
better, yeah? Mm.
What's going on, Aaron? Bibliotheory, what's going on? He says, "What's
Yes.
up?"
Love
Like the
Aaron.
old '90s Bud Light commercials. Callum, what's going on, dude? I said the name right. I used to call him Calum.
No,
That,
you're good.
sir, was wrong. I know this. Callum, what's going on, man? It's good to see you here. Another
Callum's a
wonderful.
legend.
Yes, he is. Now he's in Australia as well, right?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
So
Yeah,
much
he's in
talent.
Darwin, so yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's super cool what's coming out of Australia at the moment.
It is. My other half loves the cover as well.
Hey, Ashley. Thank you.
Yes. Sarah Beth cover is amazing. Let's see. Shane, what's going on, man? It's good to see you here.
Hey,
It
Shane.
is a wonderful cover. I'm going to throw up. So the pictures I mean, this expanse, come on.
Yeah,
That's
look at
just
that.
beautiful. The naked hardback, right?
Yep, that's the naked hardback. It's
And
so
then
good. I
you've
love it.
got the formatting here with the JW. It just looks so
Yeah,
nice,
yeah.
man. And I want to
One of
say
my goals was to make it like as indistinguishable from a trad book as possible. So, and Jeff is just so good at that. Like his design language was just, yeah, bang on.
you absolutely did exactly that, man. Let's see. Okay. Cinepalm, what's going on? Yeah, I think she's talking about Michael Whalen. Yeah,
Michael
Michael
Whalen,
Whalen
yeah.
is just the gangster of cover art illustration for fantasy for sure. Brian McCoppin, what's going on? Greetings. And the bearded book beast, what's going on? What's up, peeps? Can't wait for Exile of
Hey,
Water
Chris.
Gold. I've got some more to get to, but I'm going to go on to a couple questions and then we'll peep back down here.
Yeah,
So
sweet.
tell us about how the book tour has been going and some highlights, just kind of the general vibe and how you've been enjoying yourself.
It's been busy. It's been really good. Like I've been blessed actually. Obviously, with the time zones, it's really hard to schedule stuff. So forward kind of scheduled a few things and pre-recorded some stuff. But yeah, got to hang out with Herman over at Greatest Podcast in the Multiverse.
Mm-hmm.
He's a total legend. That was a great chat that we had. Yeah. Who else did I see? Nicholas Fuller obviously is one of the
Yeah,
break-ins and hosted a launch party for me. And he's just
yes.
the best dude. Like I love him to death. He's so good.
He seems like such a
Livia
nice
J.
dude.
Elliott. Oh, Nick is the best. He's a total legend. We chat all the time. He's super. One thing I love about him is he's really good at just lifting other people up around him. So, and not just us break-ins, but obviously everyone in the community. I see him on Twitter, just kind of like shouting people out and giving him a hand. He's super positive. So I love him for that because I'm not like that myself. I'm super melancholic and I'm a glass half empty kind of person. So it's good to have his energy around.
Yeah, I totally agree. That does help kind of like steer, especially in those times where you're dropping a novel. When you had the prequel
Yeah.
novel drop, those type of people, they're just passionate about what they're doing, man.
Yeah, he's great. Another one is Livia J. Elliott. She's an Aussie
Oh,
author. She's got a podcast called Books Undone on YouTube, and it's honestly I recommend it to everybody. It's a fantastic podcast. She does a lot of deep dives. But we had a chat about trauma in fantasy with like a few other
oh,
people. Callum was one of them, and Bethany BSH Garcia was another. That was a really fun chat too. So yeah, there's been a lot of cool things happening. It's been
so
awesome.
Olivia, right? Livia, yeah, she
Yeah,
sent
yeah.
me the book, the novel, no, the novella
Oh, yeah, yeah.
that she wrote.
The Genesis of
Um,
Change. Yeah.
and yes, dude, and I'm excited to dive into it, but I didn't know that I have to say I knew she was a podcaster or had just
Mhm.
dipped into it or she's been I don't know. But I have been unable to find the name of it and to subscribe to her channel. So would you
There you
repeat
go.
the name?
Yeah, Books Undone. Yeah,
Books Undone. Thank you, man.
yeah.
So
I
that's
hope you like it.
exciting.
Just really good. Yeah.
Trauma is, I think, one of the things that is inevitable as a human and that speaks through books so well to well, us as readers, depends on what it is, but I think just general trauma, the things that happen in life, inevitably, the death of a loved one, other
Hmm.
things, it just speaks through a book so well, and it gets people feeling. So that's a wonderful topic. I can't wait to hear your guys' opinion on it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, definitely check it out. I think, yeah, and like, on trauma, like at the root of every character's development, I think that's kind of where trauma lies, so
Mhm.
it's important in stories.
And for me, it's like that connecting moment. It's like the foundation of the relationship I'm going to have with that character kind of starts there, where I
Yeah,
relate with them.
that's right.
So
I love
tell
the
us
way you put that,
about
actually.
the. Oh, sorry. So I'm so sorry. Sometimes there's a little bit of a lag. I never mean to interrupt you, brother. So if I
No,
do,
you're
I'm
good.
so
You're good.
sorry. So
Same
tell
here.
us about the novella "In Exile of An Exile of Water and Gold." As far as for people who are unaware, unfamiliar with it, a little bit of an overview, kind of what they're going to be getting themselves into, the genre, and kind of your plans with the series
For sure.
name as well.
Yeah, yeah. So the series is called The Song of the Sleepers. Um, at the moment, it's planned to be a trilogy. It might become a four-book series, just depending on how the story kind of progresses. I'm someone who's kind of like, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but I'm semi-pantser, semi-plotter. So I'm not sure quite yet how long it's going to be. But yeah, essentially, like this was kind of my attempt at writing a truly epic fantasy with a like that's rooted in the classic kind of tradition of the genre,
Mm,
but I wanted to kind of mix it with some really weird and interesting elements. So, I mean, one of the things I really sought to do with Exile particularly was tie in a murder mystery. So there's kind of that running through it. And a lot of people have said, yeah, it kind of reads like a crime novel set in a fantasy world, which has been really cool to hear. But the other thing in these books, particularly, is the science of bioluminescence and the way that trees can network and communicate via fungi. So
mm.
that's been something that I've always been super interested in, and I really wanted to find a way to like synthesize this like real world science with a magic system. So it's very kind of Sanderson-esque in the way that there's like hard magic rules kind of set up in the world, and there's kind of a lot of yeah guidelines and also consequences as well for the characters and the way that they
Ooh.
use the magic. Um, but yeah, that was kind of the idea that I had with it. So yeah, it's one of those things that a lot of people kind of read it and they're like, this was so weird and unique, and I don't know like what to compare it to. And in some ways, that's a huge compliment. And in other ways,
Yeah.
I'm like, please tell me something that I can compare it to because I have the same problem myself. So
I think creatives are creating a story with those aspects that are unique and different. Again, I haven't read the book yet, but
mhm.
I think that is a moment in which I'll be like, "This is refreshing," or "This isn't exactly the same as this, but it compares in these ways." Um,
Yeah, yeah, for
Especially
sure.
that
Yeah.
classic feel. I love the classic. I am a classic fantasy freak, dude. If you go through the Wheel of Time, there are things that Robert Jordan did that's like, whoa. Like I don't remember the name of the actual the magic that, but they get them around the neck, and it's kind of like you have to
Yeah.
listen. That is kind of like crazy at first. You're like,
Oh,
okay, I'm
yeah.
reading this, and it's just kind of out there. So you have to
Yeah, yeah.
imagine that Robert Jordan felt these same feelings, releasing his work.
Yeah, I love the duality of Robert Jordan's magic system, like side in and side R, and the way that
Yeah.
that interplay kind of happens. It's so sick. And so, and the thing about it, right, is it's really kind of there's a lot of whimsy still in that magic system. So it still feels like you're rooted in a fantasy world, and that's kind of the point. Um, and then on the flip side, you've got Brandon Sanderson, and you look at like the Stormlight Archive, and the magic system is insane. It's very rigid. It sticks to very hard and fast rules
Wow.
that can and can't be exploited. But that was something that I really wanted to see if I could kind of merge those two things together in my own world. So I guess that was where it kind of came from.
So I'm excited to because I have not read Brandon Sanderson other than uh Elise or
Oh, Elantris?
Elantris, and it was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay.
Yeah, cool.
I mean, it was, you know, from what I understand, that's not the one that people are like, oh, this is the best.
Yeah,
But I had a
yeah.
similar. It was like a B plus, of 3-4 stars. It
It's a
wasn't
good book.
bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good book.
But I'm getting ready, or I was getting
Mhm.
ready, and within the next few months to start Stormlight Archives. I actually think
Yes,
I'm
dude.
going to read your book first and see what that experience is like without the hard magic
Cool.
comparable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that'd be cool to hear your take on that actually. Um, yeah, like I'm coming from a place where I've been reading Brandon for quite a long time, but his magic system just like all of his magic systems in every book, they're just so incredibly well thought out, and they're deeply rooted in the way that consequences play out in the plots, and that's just something that I've always been super fascinated by. So, yeah, no,
I
keen to hear thoughts.
It's one of those areas in fantasy I've yet to explore. So I'm excited to kind of hang out with the hard magic system because I don't have a comparable.
Hmm.
I don't know how, but every single fantasy series that I've read or standalone has always kind of just had a softer side to the magic system. So I'm excited to have that experience. Uh,
Yeah, nice.
uh, just got the prequel. Sometimes the context is a little crazy, but hey, we'll get through it.
No, it's okay.
Cinepom, I'm glad that you loved Elantris. It was okay. It wasn't remarkable for me. The political intrigue was there.
Oh,
You
I
know,
love the politicking in that book. That's one thing
yeah,
that really stood out to me. Yeah.
it did. And there's some like really unfortunate things that happen right as the book gets started, and then like just that
Hmm.
idea of kind of like a beautiful, awesome, thriving city that is no
Yeah.
longer that. It creates a dystopian feel to a not really dystopian book because it's like an
Yeah, it's
area
nearly
of
like a zombie
dystopia.
apocalypse kind of thing that's like happening in like an epic fantasy world. It's super interesting.
It is. It is. It is. So I love the bio. What got you interested in bioluminescence? Because if you know this, I obviously, but if anybody watching or
Yeah.
listening doesn't know this, that's not just in movies. Like that's a very real thing on Earth that happens. Bioluminescence is real.
And it is so cool. That's I mean, like, it's one of those things that innately I've just always been interested by, like ever since I was a little kid. I grew up in the Blue Mountains in Sydney.
Blue Mountain.
And something that you see in the Blue Mountains, you can kind of do like these amazing kind of bushwalks through the rainforestry. And a lot of times you'll kind of walk through caves and glowworms and stuff. And just the way that looked to me as a child was like it's otherworldly, it's
Oh yeah.
otherworldly. Mm.
Um, One of my bucket lists, by the way, Josh, when I do this, when I go cross this off, because I want to dive the Great Barrier Reef. When I do that, I'm
Hmm.
gonna stop. I'm gonna buy you lunch or something because we need to hang out.
Yes,
But
dude.
dude, the critters, I guess that my Southern Ohio would say, the critters in Australia are on just a whole other level.
It's so cool. The other one that got me when I was a kid was the anglerfish, like the deep sea fish with
Oh,
like the
a
with like
fish
the
with a
light
light
bulb,
on
like
it?
I know,
Yes.
right? Like I just used to think it was so interesting. And so I always wanted to kind of explore that. It was like, what if people could channel like the light that comes from the earth naturally and kind of use it for different purposes. So that's kind of where the idea came from. Um
If
and
you,
also like being an Australian, like we've got a really rich history in our country before white settlement happened of the
mm,
indigenous people.
yeah,
Um, and so something I kind of and something I love about our indigenous people in our country is the way that they innately understand and cooperate with the earth and like they give and take and it's kind of like this beautiful like mutually exclusive relationship that the people just knew implicitly. Um and that was something that I really wanted in my story as well, was like the kind of original people of this earth in my world to be able to use the magic because they understand how to give and take from the earth. So that's another thing that's there. Yeah.
that's a beautiful relationship, and it's also I highly respect anybody that has that sort of idea when it comes to the world, our Earth, give and take. Okay, so
Hmm.
uh, I I am a hunter, and
Hmm.
my uncles and my grandfathers all hunted. But you learn safety first, and you
Yeah.
don't ever take the life of something that you don't plan to completely use every single part of it. That's a part that I guess I could relate to the give and take
Yeah.
relationship, and I think there's obviously so many more types of those relationships, but it's extremely respectable.
No, that's like a really good point that you make. Like the Aboriginals were able to kind of hunt with the seasons as well. It was another thing that they did. So, hunting animals at certain times of year in order to actually manage the ecosystem was a way that they helped kind of regulate life. But then it's also benefiting the people, right? Because they need to eat. So that kind of stuff is just it's super rich, and
And
it's amazing that these people were doing this 65,000 years ago.
dude, yeah, anybody in modern times that doesn't give the credit as far as intellect goes, like
Mm,
to people that long ago, um, check yourself, because just because they didn't
yeah,
have iPhones, I think in some ways they were much more advanced than we are today
I agree with you. I
in
agree with
certain
you
different
completely.
aspects. So my man, I got to say, Rob Lee, what's going on, my
Bro,
brother? Uh,
the death metal
excited.
bard.
Yes, dude. How cool of an idea is that?
It's so sick.
It is. Careful which seashells you pick up. Um, I don't really get the reference, but I'm guessing maybe a jellyfish or something along those lines.
I don't know. I don't know exactly what animal you're talking about, Rob, but jellyfish are one of those precarious things that do kind of pop up in Australia a lot. So
Mm,
that's an interesting one.
yeah,
And it's very easy to step on a jellyfish. Very easy.
and it have a whole world of pain. Marbled cone.
Uh-huh.
Wow, very specific.
Oh
Marbled cone
yeah,
snail.
marble cone snail. Okay, yeah, they're deadly. Yeah,
Deadly.
yeah.
Oh, see, not
I'm
just
pretty
pain.
sure.
You're gonna take a couple steps and maybe fall over. Yeah,
Yeah,
don't touch.
yeah.
So
Marbled cone snail. Yeah, I
I know
think
I'm gonna have
that's
to check that out
yeah,
too.
that's
It's like
right.
I'm
Yeah,
writing it down. I'm
yeah.
gonna geek out on it later. So your storytelling, your prose, have you found it to evolve to be world heavy, character focused, plot driven, um,
Hmm.
thematic driven? What have you noticed yourself gravitating towards, and really driving your story through?
That's a really good question. Something that, um, like, I guess shaped me as a reader was like the rich reading experiences that I had as a child. Mostly thanks to my parents who were just they knew what good literature was, and they instilled that in me from a young age. Um, and obviously, I had good teachers and stuff too. But one thing I did at university is I majored in literature, and so a big kind of part of my focus that is somewhat subconscious now is theme. So theme really does drive this book in particular. The idea of having kind of two characters that embody what it means to be exiled in completely different ways,
Mm,
and come from completely different backgrounds. And they kind of take the main focus in this story. That was one thing that kind of drove it. Another thing that drove it for me is what it means to be named what you are named. So, how much weight does a name carry? And that's something that I think is interesting, even in our culture, right? Like, if you're going to have a baby, you really need to think about what you're going to name the baby. And it
you
doesn't
start thinking.
necessarily, yeah, you start thinking, right? Like, it might not necessarily be reflective of their personality, but there is history, weight, and tradition to what names are and where they've come from. And so that was something I really wanted to kind of, yeah, get into the book as well. I guess from a character point of view, it is character driven. There's a lot of character focuses though. So I would say that because there are a lot of POVs, we don't get as intimate with them maybe as you might in a single POV focused novel. So
Mhm.
the world kind of does take the forefront a little bit because the world is really weird. So you've got the big giant tree, and then you've got the world beneath where the humans live, and so there's a lot of interesting stuff happening between those two places too.
what, this is crazy. So you're talking about exile and the different ways that could be portrayed or talked about, and it's completely perfect timing. I'm reading Curse of the Mistwraith by Janie Wirtz, and I
Oh yeah.
just finished chapter 3 called Exile. There's two
Oh wow.
brothers, and they are being both exiled to a different location, but the kind of the same exile theme is going on between the
Mm.
two. So kind of just I don't that was a moment meant to be right there, because
Oh, that's
I get
hilarious.
that, and I love that kind of theme. Um, I have to say, Beth, what's going on? It's so nice to see you
Hey
here.
Beth.
Uh, Everything in Australia is trying to kill you. Aussies are made of stern stuff. Yeah, they're a different breed, and I honestly I can't wait to dive the Great Barrier Reef and see what kind of bites I get, because I'll probably get those.
It's a cool place.
Excuse me. So character focused themes. Was it always in your mind? Did you always know that you wanted to do multi POVs? That was just kind of the influence that you love to read, and you wanted to tell your story that way.
Yeah, I've written this is my third kind of full novel, and I've written fragments of other books that never really finished. But this novel was kind of the second attempt that I made at writing a multi POV kind of story, and it does come from my love for like
Hmm.
the epic fantasy, you know. So that really was kind of what drove that. Having said that, I love first person point of view, single character focus, sci-fi fantasy. I think that is an area that we should be exploring more as writers, and it's something I definitely want to do in the future. In fact, one of the ones I recently read that I was blown away by, and I've talked about this publicly already, is Aaron Bibliotheory's book, Falling into Oblivion.
I've
That book,
started. I haven't finished it yet, and I'm digging it.
it's stunning. Like, I mean, something that I think Aaron did so well in that book was use the first person point of view. Like, it's so intimate, but you're
Yes.
still let into the world, and that to me is really rich for a reader, because that's where you get that kind of peak character investment, right?
Yeah.
Is when you're in the head. So yeah.
So I think that if I had, my very absolute favorite type of scope is writing is multi POV. Um,
Hmm.
I really enjoy that because an author that is well written will take me from character to character. I'll have a well rounded idea on the plot.
Hmm.
Everything will come together at different points, multiple times throughout the novel. But I also do enjoy a first person because, again, like you said, the it's very intimate. You get a lot of the details that you wouldn't necessarily, the inner dialogue a lot too, like the inner dialogue that you wouldn't get maybe from a multi POV because you're not spending every chapter with them. Also,
That's right.
I just thought of this, and tell me your opinion. From the first person point of view, do you think there's blinders on the reader sometimes due to, I wouldn't say it's a limited scope, but it's definitely a lot smaller than that epic feel. Kind of from me, multi POVs are kind of
Yeah.
all looking into the center plot. If you have just one point of view, you're getting a much more
Mm.
intimate. You're getting to know that character better. But do you feel like it kind of puts blinders on parts of the plot? I don't know.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. I think like one of the big pluses to multi POV storytelling, right, is you could take a scene and you could tell it from four characters' points of view. And that's super interesting. In fact, when you do get to Stormlight Archive, that's something that you'll find really interesting in particular. He does that actually across all five books. He takes the same first chapter of every book and he rewrites it from a different character's point of view
Oh
of what they
wow.
saw that day. Yeah, and that to me, like that's the benefit, right, of a multi POV story, is you can do stuff like that. It's really clever, but you are limited in terms of the intimacy. Then on the flip side, you got single POV, which I love. Even if it's not first person, it can still be
Mm,
third person. But you could be limited by, is it a reliable narrator? Are you seeing the world for what it really is, or are you seeing it
Mm.
by someone's experience? And that's interesting, right? Especially when you get down to
Yes.
the idea of what's true, and you talk about, relative versus objective truth, then all of a
Oh,
sudden points of view change that as well. So yeah, there's a lot you
I
can do. I mean, in fact, that's one of the reasons why my novellas are written from single character
mm.
points of view, because I get to do a bit of that, and then in the main book I can actually peel back and open it up a bit more. So sorry, I
you
didn't mean to cut
you
you off.
Oh, no, 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 no. You hit on a couple points that just really excited me, and I'm glad that you touched on, a couple of those. I'm going to go back and watch this interview again and dive down a rabbit hole with a couple of them for sure. Um, so starting a little bit further back before the novel and all that, and really you writing,
Mhm.
um, when did you know literature was important to you? Kind of when did that moment happen?
I was very young. I connected a lot with comic books as a younger kid. And
Okay.
so I guess like the development of my kind of my talents, I guess, started with comics and drawing, and I was doing a lot of that as a child. Um, and then I kind of grew up with that, so I got really stuck into some of the more adult storylines in the Batman kind of sagas and Spider-Man and things like that, and just love them to death. But then at the age of 5, the formative experience I had the most was reading The Hobbit. I read The Hobbit at a very young age.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, very young age, and I understood most of it for the most part. I did have like an advanced reader age, but I did have to come back to it, and I found when I came back to it a few years later, it just changed my life. Like it just stuck with me. And I read that book nearly every year now. So it's fantastic.
So a couple things. I have a 5-year-old, so I know how
Yeah, yeah,
impressive that is. Like my son can count in Spanish, my son can spell and read certain words, but there's no way he's going through The Hobbit, and he's a smart kid.
hmm
Dude,
hmm
that is an incredible age to be able to read through a whole novel. Um,
hmm
so bravo. I think that that just ultimately helped everything that you're passionate about and that you're doing. Um,
hmm
Second is I haven't told a lot of people because I'm going to make. I was telling you a little bit about the building that is being made out, so it's
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
done. One of the very first videos is I just read The Hobbit for the first time,
Oh,
which was
yes.
so incredibly cool, man. Like I finally got that experience, and I was going to wait for my son. He's 5, like I said, to be
hmm
6, 7, 8, but I
hmm
wanted to have the experience when him and I have it, to me, somewhat teachable for him. I wanted
Yeah,
me to, have the voices down, have the story down, maybe lead him down the road a little bit easier than somebody just reading the novel, to really
yeah, yeah.
inspire him. Uh,
Man, that's
let's
so
just,
good. Like,
I was super inspired. Sorry, go ahead.
no, no, I was gonna say, like, something that I love about what you said then is, and you'll see this with all kids, but like, kids love being read to. It doesn't matter how old they are; they love being read to. And I think when you think about humans, right, like stories came from an oral tradition. Like stories were told; they weren't necessarily written down in books for thousands of years. Like that's a recent thing for us. and
Yeah.
and so yeah, keep it close, like keep it really close to you, because for me, like I'm an English teacher, primary teacher, and I teach my year 6 class The Hobbit every year. That's one of the books that we study. And watching these kids who are like on the cusp of becoming teenagers just kind of like become little children again when they're listening
Oh,
to you read, it's such a cool feeling. Like it's so
dude.
fulfilling, and it sits with them.
That's like that's might be my favorite thing you said so far, man. I can tell you love your job. I can tell you
hmm
love that moment. I can tell you love that assignment, and your kids love that assignment too, even if they don't necessarily know it when they start it.
Yeah, yeah,
I love that,
it's the
dude.
best.
Um, so a part of the same question, the question that I just asked you was, when did you know that literature was something you're passionate about? Why fantasy?
Um, I think I just am one of those people that has felt compelled to imagine stuff for the
Yes.
longest time. Like I don't necessarily know what it is. I know as a kid, I was really chronic daydreamer.
Mm.
So, if I was doing maths at school, for example, all the other kids would be on the books, and I would just be spacing out, staring out the window. Um, but then the second that we started reading a story in English, I was like 110% locked onto it. So, I have a very creative mind, I guess, and so
I,
imagination. Yeah, yeah. Go on.
I
Yeah.
no, I was just I think that that's an incredible thing to have and to notice at a young age. And I truly hope that that's how my kids do because I didn't. Um, I didn't read a full novel. I read a full novel, I think, in fifth grade, and then not
Hmm.
again until I was 29. I
Yeah.
just never thought that I would, read. I never enjoyed it, and I was very wrong. It took a time in my life to where
Mm.
it was made a possibility, I think. But I hope that my kids have a certain situation as you do. You recognize that stories take you places and that you love to imagine. And that is a tool I think that as an adult, if you can hold on to from childhood, is such a beautiful thing. And it's going to
It
help you.
is pretty cool. Yeah. Oh, 100%. At the same time, though, like, I think it's worth saying that people do engage with their imagination at any age, whether it's with a book or not. And
Mm.
so, and that's important. Like, if you're the kind of person that engages with story through cinema, right? Like, it's just this is valid to me. So I don't think yeah, we have to be limited to the stories that we read necessarily, but it definitely was a blessing for me at least to kind of grow up with that. So
And
as a pastime.
you said that your parents are readers and they influenced you as
Mm,
well. So
mm.
the part of you speaking on being read to is also a part of your memories.
Oh, absolutely. Like I think my dad especially, he's kind of the big reader in the house. My mum reads a lot too, but um, he's got very similar reading taste to me. So I remember hitting kind of the age of like 12, and I was starting to move out of kind of Redwall, Ranger's Apprentice, all these kind of kids fantasy series,
Mm.
and trying to figure out what was next. And that was when I got to actually like engage with dad's bookshelf, and that was like the
Oh,
coolest moment. Like I still remember the day when he was like, "Okay, I think you can start here now." And
you
so I
like
started with David
graduated to
Eddings.
his stuff.
Yeah, it was so cool. Yeah, David Eddings was one of the early ones. Obviously, Wheel of Time, um, the Star Wars expanded universe books, which I still highly recommend. I know they've all been decanonized now, but to me, that's still the expanded universe of Star Wars. And they're all such fantastic books. And then things like June and Raymond E. Feist and Johnny Wirtz and stuff like that. So,
Wow.
yeah, so many cool classics. Yeah.
What does dad think about you dropping your first novel?
Oh, he's pretty stoked. I've
Ah,
dedicated this book to him actually. So, this book's dedicated to him and also to my high school English teacher, um, who both of these people in my life are part of the reason why I'm a writer now. So, yeah, so I can't wait to give him his copy actually when I go back home at the end of the year. It'll be good. Yeah.
dude. So congrats, man. I think that that is so cool. I understand that how that is to be a son and want to make your dad proud. So I think that that is something very cool, man. You guys get to bond over
Thank you.
again. Um,
Yeah, it's a cool
it
feeling.
Cinnapom. I call you
It's
Ezra.
fine. Yeah, it is.
Is that Lycanius on your shelf? She's creeping, dog.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's yeah, Shadow of What Was Lost. Just where is it? Just there.
There it
And
is.
actually James is a great writer. I would love to meet him someday. He lives like 10 minutes away from me, so hoping to
Dude,
make that happen.
you have to make
It'd
that
be so
happen.
cool.
Just like,
Yeah.
run into him buying like cereal or
Yeah.
like some peppermints or something. Hey man, I've read everything you've that would be so
Yeah.
cool, man. Another guy that's out there, Richard Swan.
Yeah,
And
Richard's
is
up
an
in
Australian.
is he in Sydney or Queensland? I don't know where he is,
I
but
think it
yeah.
is Sydney. I think it is.
Sydney, yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
he's great. He's so funny, man.
he's
Justice of Kings is a
hilarious.
fantastic book.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I talked to him like way back, very early in my YouTube career, if you will.
Mhm.
And I had no idea how hilarious he was before I talked to him.
Yeah.
So the whole time I'm just like dying. But anyway, man, That was actually my next question is who were some of those inspirations? So you had David Eddings, Dune, Janie Wirtz, Raymond E.
Yeah,
Feist, which I have to brag, I got to talk to Raymond E. Feist, and holy crap, dude.
I know.
Just
I watched that one. That
just
was
the
great.
fact that he is like, yeah, this guy with just 1,000 subs, I'll hop on there because I'm like one of the most legendary fantasy. I don't think I'll ever be ready to talk to Raymond E. Feist because
Hmm.
my backlog of his books isn't huge. I've only read a couple. So there's
Yeah.
those people out there that are like, do you realize I grew up and I have every one of his? I was like, no, I don't. And I'm sorry that I don't realize, but I'm trying to, you know what I mean?
No, that's cool. Everyone's got their own journey, like, but yeah, Raymond E. Feist is such a legend of fantasy. Such a
Um,
legend.
so, oh, Peter V. Brett, where does he fall in on
Oh
your
yeah,
your
okay, yeah, cool.
your reads as far as how old were you when you read The Warded Man?
So, I went to uni and did a Bachelor of Liberal Arts, which is a
Mm,
very kind of reading heavy degree. And because of that, I just didn't get to read for enjoyment as much after school as I would have liked. Um, in my third year, I started to kind of find the balance, thank goodness, and really got back into reading. And
mm.
so, The Painted Man, which is what it's called in the UK, it's called The Warded Man in America.
Oh wow, I
Um,
didn't know that.
yeah, yeah. That book was one of the first ones that I picked up to try and get back into reading. And I think for the first time in years, I had that experience of being a kid again, where I read the book through the whole damn night, and then like had half an hour of sleep before I had to get up and go to class, and it just
Mm.
like changed my life again. It was like that first like time that I read something so imaginary. Um, and it just stuck with me. So, and then after that, I watched a lot of like Pete's like early like interviews and stuff where he talked about the process of writing the book.
Mm.
He wrote it on his phone, like on the subway in New York, going to work every day. And I was just like, this is insane. Like anyone can get there eventually, and it just reignited me to start writing again. So
Sold millions of
yeah.
copies, and he
Mhm.
wrote on the subway.
Mhm.
That's an
Yeah.
inspiring story. When you think you
Yeah.
can't or you don't have the right tools, reconsider.
Yeah. That's right. Um,
Um, I
it was
finished the
incredible.
first couple
Yeah.
chapters of The Warded Man, and I'm completely compelled. And in fact, I had to stop reading it
Yeah.
because I'm giving my effort and like cognition to Janie Wirt's prose, which is beautiful,
Yeah.
but it's not something that you could read alongside something else.
Yeah. You have to
Um,
ponder it a little bit more. Yeah. Mm.
very imaginative, very lyrical, very beautiful,
Mhm.
and every sentence is a vision. Every sentence is a vision
Yeah.
in Janie Wirt's books.
Yeah.
It's very
That's
cool.
so cool.
What has been, or actually, we'll start here. From the
Mhm.
day you were like, I'm going to start writing, I don't know which one came first for you writing, if it was the novella or the novel, but
Mhm.
whichever one it was, how long did that take from first words written to complete cover release?
Okay, that's so I started January 2023. I sat outside with my wife and my best mate one day, and we were talking about New Year's resolutions. And I was like, I'm gonna write this idea that I've had for like 10 plus years this year. I'm gonna do it. And so I started basically January 1st, and I finished the draft in late August, I think. So I knocked out, yeah, 175,000 words in about 8 months, which was like, that was fast for me.
Fast.
Like in the past, I hadn't been able to write like that. Um, but it worked. And I think one of the big things that I would tell everyone as well when they want to write a book is just shut that stupid voice up that's in your head saying, you either you can't do this or you really need to go back and check that chapter. Like, just don't listen to that. Write the crap, write the word vomit, and keep going with it, because once it's finished, you can go back and correct as much of it as you need to do. And so that's why I was able to draft it so fast. Um,
The second part of that question was what's a piece of advice that you maybe used that you would give to
Sorry.
somebody. So you are just on that wavelength, bro. I love that. Well, it makes me think that hey, half my questions are good because they go in line with one another. I love
100%.
that. So having this idea for so long, you said 10 years. Do you think that that was
Mhm.
part of the speed in which you got it down, or do you just felt more comfortable, more confident?
Yeah. Parts of the story I didn't know until I sat down to write. And that's kind of like where we were talking about like the plotting pantsing thing before.
Mm,
I will kind of I outline chapter by chapter once I've written like the first quarter of the book. So basically, I'll write the first quarter of the book, you know, pantsing, basically like just discovery writing,
yeah.
and then kind of then I'll actually sit down and chapter by chapter outline the rest of the story because I kind of have enough trajectory to figure out where it's gonna go. Which I know that's like that seems like an oddly like specific way to write a book, but it's worked for me every time so far.
Well,
Um,
usually, like the individual's personal writing style is, it's all different compared,
yeah,
everybody's got a different little thing that they do.
yeah. So that's kind of what works for me. But yeah, I mean, there were elements of the magic system that I had written, like on my phone in my notes 10 years ago when I was like, sitting in a lecture room where I was really bored and I thought of stuff and I just kind of write it down. And so there'd been parts of the story that had sat with me for a long time, but they didn't kind of become the story until I sat down and started writing the first few chapters. So
So
yeah.
you kind of pantsing your way through half the book, and then that gives you a trajectory to plan upon.
Yeah. Basically, like I think about kind of 25 to 30,000 words in, I kind of find my stride. And then what I'll do is I'll sit down to write one night and I'll be like, oh damn, I actually can't sit down and write. I need to actually think about where every character is going now. And then I'll go through and do all their POV chapters, just paragraph summaries.
Mhm.
And I always know where the book's gonna end. So
Okay.
it's just kind of about figuring out how to get their paths to move in that direction, if that makes sense. Um,
So let me ask it's probably a stupid question, but I don't,
Not at
I
all.
still don't know. So let's say you pants the
Mhm.
80,000 words. Is that a lot? Is
Uh,
that a big number? Or is that roughly
you
like
yeah, I
simple?
mean, I have Discovery written an entire novel before.
Okay.
Um, you could do it. I think it's a risk with a multi-POV fantasy. I
That's
think
kind
if
of
you
my
were writing
question.
from a single character's point of view, you could probably do it, actually. I mean, a lot of authors do that with single POV stories. I think it's quite common, especially outside of fantasy, like in literary fiction and stuff. A lot of writers tend to discovery write. Um, yeah.
So when you're writing multi POV and you've kind of discovery written half the book, how do you
Mhm.
find so naturally you know somewhat what you've talked about as your discovery writing. How do you go back and kind of like I don't know what the question is like there's these characters, okay, in the first half of the book that you
Uh-huh.
don't necessarily have outlined. How do you go back? Is there like a search function for like or maybe you're
Yeah,
just
okay.
go ahead.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. For me, I use Scrivener, and Scrivener has saved me because in the early stages of every story I write, I am a chaotic mess. Like I'll have like scenes here, bits and parts here, and some characters I'll have to cut or I'll
Naturally.
have to change their personality completely. And so Scrivener is great because it's got a wide search function for the whole manuscript, but your chapters and scenes can be organized into separate documents within a binder. So it 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 actually looks quite imposing, I think, when you first try Scrivener out, but if you give it a solid run, I do think it's superior to any other, like, app, in my opinion. I will usually, like, revise, or proofread at least in Docs or in Word, but, I won't do that until the full story is written. The full thing is drafted in Scrivener because it's the best way to kinda wide search, and the best way to kinda organize scenes and stuff like that. So, yeah.
That would be absolutely a necessity for me because
Hmm.
I enjoy just kind of writing by the seat of my pants, but at the same time, it's very hard for me to recollect the next day what
Yeah.
I kind of wrote, and that's kind
Yeah.
of why
Yeah.
I
I get that.
so you can relate, and you kind of what just because
Yeah.
of Scrivener, you can go back and do a little bit of searching, relearning what you talked about and kind of expand upon it.
Yeah, and the other thing that's great about Scrivener, which I think you would love about this, is like if you're writing a chapter, you can have the chapter open in like a main window, but on
Mhm.
the side you can actually take notes, and you can link those notes to other chapters. Like you can create like a hyperlink on them. So when you click
Wow.
them, it will just throw you over to another note in another scene, and then you go, "Oh yeah, that's right." Because for me, when I'm discovery writing, the biggest issue is if you're writing a book like this, continuity becomes a problem.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it becomes a massive problem, you know.
Oh,
And you know, even after I drafted it and I'd sent it off to Sarah, Sarah was still finding continuity errors. That's a natural consequence of how I write. So I've kind of had to just deal with that. But the best thing you can do is start linking your notes. And then the other thing
oh,
I'll do as well is I'll have a chapter by chapter outline in another document within Scrivener, and I will float that on the side of my Scrivener window the entire time so that I can constantly refer back to the chapter by chapter outline. I use a really big monitor. So I've got a 34-inch, like ultra wide monitor,
mhm.
and it just gives me the ability to like, yeah, float that outline on the side and then have the story open on the other side with the notes,
You
and I
just
can see
opened
everything at
up.
once.
You opened up the whole new world for me, and I think that that's going to be key. I
Yes.
that is
That's good.
that is a spot in my want to write folder, I guess, if you of my life that I have
Mhm.
not been able to get past, and I haven't really known how to ask that quite. It's a kind of specific question that takes a
It
little bit
is.
of understanding on your part to understand what the
Yeah.
hell I'm talking about.
It also
So,
takes a lot of time to practice it and figure it out. Like, that's the
oh
other thing.
yeah,
Like, I've had to write 3 novels and see the stories inherently break down and not work until it's clicked, and I started figuring out how to optimize the software to kind of help me do what I wanted to do. So I'm maintaining the process that I want, but I've got the benefit of not letting things fall behind because of Scrivener.
ah man, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, dude. That helped me so much because again, I had no idea how to ask that question. Um,
No worries. No, that's great. Hopefully it works for you.
I think it will. That's like the one
Yeah.
piece of advice I've gotten. Well, because I just didn't know how to ask it. So I think that's going to be absolutely wonderful news. Cinnapomp, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you. Yeah, Tim, that's another one. EC
Yeah.
Greaves, he
Yeah,
wrote
sure.
wrote on his phone. Just thumbs a going, man. So I don't know. Personally, I think my thumbs would get sore, or like I'd feel like I'm gonna lose it, or something along those
I know,
lines,
I
and I
know.
would give up. Um, so for a debut self-published author as yourself,
Mhm.
what was so this is my point of view. You've nailed a cover. The formatting is great. The cover artist you hired is great. You've really put out for your very first debut fantasy novel a wonderful example. And
Oh, thanks, man.
somebody who wants to follow in that footstep, what's a piece of advice that you would give them? Make sure you do this, make sure you do that, things that you did.
Um, One of the things I think is very important, in my opinion, is the cover. And I know this is a hot topic. I don't think you need to spend a ridiculous amount of money on a cover.
Mhm.
I think if you can, then it's perfectly valid and it's a wise choice. But if you can't, there are great options, like like Mibble for example. I know a lot of people use their services and their covers are fantastic. Um, Even I think is it Get Covers? I think is another one. Um, a lot of these services do really good work and even have really good pre-mades, and they're not that expensive. But definitely the cover is important because it doesn't matter. Like most of the time, a customer is not unfortunately, in the indie space, a customer is not seeing the book on the shelf at their local bookstore. Like, I wish it was like that, but it's not the way it is. So
Right.
you really need to think about like the fact that if someone sees the cover, it's literally this big. Like that's what they're seeing. And if the cover does not stand out to them at that size, then it's not a well functioning cover. Like there's no other way to say it. So that's just something I would be mindful of, because I think there is so much flooding Amazon, and if you want to stand out of the crowd, that thumbnail is 120%. You know, of the thing, right? Like if it's not functioning, the algorithm's just going to knock that book down because people aren't clicking on it.
Well, the next time any of you listening find a book of an author that's unknown to you, a title that's unknown to you, you just didn't know it existed, ask yourself what caught your eye.
Caught your eye. Yeah.
It's going to 99% be, because we're visual people. We've all heard the saying, don't judge a book by its cover, but that's what every single one of us do.
Yeah.
So exactly the point
right.
you're making, Josh, is wonderful.
I think I'll just to add to that quickly as well. You can see behind me, I've got the covers just right behind my head there. So that's the novella, and then I've got the novel there. One thing, and this is just me speaking from a perspective of marketing. So, you know, I'm going to speak quite bluntly here, but I think that my novella cover, which is an icon, it's very simple. I personally think that stands out a lot more than Jeff's cover does. And again, that's not to say that Jeff's cover is not better, because it is. It is wonderful. And when people see it at the proper size, they think it's stunning. And that's how it was designed. But the thing is, like, if you take the novella and you scale down the size of it, it's so much more noticeable, because it's very simple, it's very identifiable, and there's nothing happening besides the title and one object. So that's just like, yeah.
Here's my quick take on it. I think that you did the right cover for the novella, and I think that you did the right cover for the novel. And I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Anybody that goes to your website, like I have below, go to his website. It's joshuawalkerauthor.com. You can sign up for his newsletter and you get, boom, free novella. Okay. Let's say somebody's going through just checking your X account out. That's going to start out as, like you said, it's simple. It's very noticeable, which will, if this is what you see first, it's the novella. They're going to get a taste of your writing. Then naturally, a multi-POV, what did you say, 180,000 word novel is going to expand upon, well, a lot of things. It's going to be a denser story, it's more characters, multi-POV. In my opinion, I think each cover said exactly what it's saying in the most perfect way for each one of your novels or each one of your works, the novella and the novel.
Yeah, and I think that was something that was very intentional at the start, was let's make these novellas look incredibly like iconographic, so that they're immediately eye-catching. They don't need to be top quality art. They just need to grab somebody. And they honestly, it needs to look like the kind of thing that you're going to see in a brick and mortar store. Like, I don't know. I know this is quite different for a lot of like American publishers, but in the UK, like, because we buy UK fantasy books in Australia, UK fantasy is predominantly iconography, whereas I find American fantasy is predominantly art. And that's really interesting to me, because that says a lot about the buyer, right? And a lot about who's picking these books up. But, you know, me as a fantasy nerd, I grew up wanting the UK version, or the American versions all the time, and I couldn't get them. So I don't have any Michael Whalen Stormlight books because you can't buy them here. You know,
you want to know what's funny is every time I just saw You Like It Darker by Stephen King, the UK version, and I'm like, I want that one.
Yeah.
Instead of the US. I think it's just that thing about human condition. We want what that can't necessarily easily have, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that there's a quality subject to that too. It's like the for the longest times, and I still believe Christopher Rocchio's UK covers. I love his UK covers. They're so different. Christopher
See, I
Rocchio's,
love the American ones.
they're good. They
I
are.
love the American ones.
But for some reason, I didn't think that the vastness that the book portrays was represented as well with the US covers.
Hmm.
So I
I agree with
gravitated
that.
toward the UK. But I
Yeah,
love that take, man, because we're kind of like on the same exact point of
yeah,
view here, just opposite ends of the spectrum.
yeah. That's so funny. And
It
you know,
is.
like, I mean, at the end of the day, like, that means that now I've got books that are in the same series, and they're kind of marketable to both those readers. So that was kind of the idea, is that the person who loves that traditional epic fantasy like artwork, they're still going to get that. But then the novellas are always going to have this more trad publishing kind of iconography cover that
Yeah.
the other kind of reader likes. So, and that's the
I
benefit of being indie, is that you can do that.
do whatever. Yes, you have nobody breathing down your neck. No, no ideas that they're
Mm,
having forced upon you.
yeah.
Um, I wonder why publishers do that. Like you've got the Sorcerer's Stone and the Philosopher's Stone. When it
Hmm.
comes to Harry Potter, you've got just learned today the Warded Man, the Painted Man. I wonder. I mean, is the vernacular that different? I don't find that much of a difference between the way I talk and the way you talk. At least the words we use to warrant a different title. I don't know. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
just going down a rabbit hole, but that's just weird to me.
I think it's about the idea of how these corporations perceive us as like cultural bodies. Like,
Mhm.
so, you know, you look at like the Painted Man. Like, I think the Painted Man is a good title,
Yeah.
but as someone who loves that book, it doesn't really work as a title because warding, like, and this is
Right.
not really a spoiler, but warding is the main magic system in that world. And
Right.
so the warded man makes a lot more sense from a story point of view. So I think what's kind of influenced that change, there has to be some kind of psychology um, behind it, because marketing is all about psychology. And that's psychology has to suggest something about the way that the UK market would want to hear the title said at the end of the day. So I mean, on the flip side, if you take the Harry Potter example, like the Philosopher's Stone, I don't know if this is true, but I've read that the reason that that change was there is that they thought the general American population wouldn't understand the concept of a philosopher in a title of a book, which is ridiculous to me.
It is.
But this is the problem, right? Is that when you look at these trad publishing like corporations, they're kind of generalizing an entire body of people into like one thing to figure out
Yeah.
how to market the book. But like, I don't think there's any need for it. Like, if you ask most people these days, do you think of the Philosopher's Stone as the Sorcerer's Stone automatically, or do you think of it as the Philosopher's Stone automatically?
So it's the Sorcerer's Stone 100% all day, every day, just because I was in third grade and read it that way.
That's right. And that's because they've like pushed that out there. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to think about the title change thing. That's personally something I just don't.
And
I'd
I don't
love to
see a
know more
connection.
about why they do it, but yeah, I don't see a connection.
I don't see
Yeah.
a connection between a philosopher and a sorcerer. I mean, yeah, they're both
Yeah.
open-minded. I guess you'd have to be, but those aren't the interjecting words that I would use for one another.
They're intrinsically different
They
words.
are, dude.
Like,
They're just completely different.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Anywho, I love your take on that because it's very similar to mine. And I'm going to guess
It
that
frustrates me.
it is. It's frustrating, and I'm going to guess that a
Yeah.
lot of people feel that way. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it is what it is, right? The old saying. Um,
That's it.
Co-author of your dreams, who you picking?
Say again.
Co-author of your
Oh,
dreams, who
co-author.
are you picking?
Oh,
That's a hard one.
I mean, like, the obvious answer is Tolkien. um,
Okay,
and I have no problem saying that because, um,
I love that you
yeah, I
don't.
mean, there's so much. I know it's like a bit of a cop-out answer, but there's just so much about Tolkien's work that has inspired me and so many other people, and even his intellect outside of his storytelling.
Oh,
I,
brilliant.
I, I yeah, like I understand a lot of his worldview and a lot of how he kind of like engaged with like mythology and wanted to like, I love everything about the guy. I think he's a genius.
Do you know how many
Um,
times that somebody has answered to my question of who was your biggest inspiration? And they said Tolkien. And I said to
mm,
myself, oh, of course, not once, not once. Because you get Tolkien is the name he is for
for the reason, yeah,
the
yeah,
reason it is.
that he is, yeah,
To
yeah,
find out how so many people are influenced and inspired and love his work shouldn't ever be surprising to somebody because he is. I mean, he lives up to his name. That's not
hmm
a any time that I get Tolkien as an answer, I now can somewhat understand. I've read The Hobbit. I get it. The dude
yeah,
makes a reading an experience. It's jolly, it's fun, it's frolicking. There's darker moments, but not dark in
yeah,
the way that modern books are. Darker for a
yeah,
second, but we get through it in somewhat of a witty way together as a
yeah,
team. And there's just so many different aspects that he brings to the table. I can absolutely, and sometimes it's hard to accept the answer that isn't Tolkien if you've read him,
hmm
because he is
hmm
just the foundation setter. He is.
yeah,
So I have never
yeah,
ever thought, oh, of course that's the answer. Not once. I think it's incredibly brave because I can imagine people who say Tolkien are like, oh, everybody says this. Well, if that's the
yeah,
truth,
yeah.
if that's an honest answer for you, I want anybody to
That's a
say
good
that
thing.
answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I would say my honorable mentions. I've got I've probably got three, right? So the first one would be Neil Gaiman,
Ooh.
um, who yeah has been a huge influence on me. Um,
What book in particular?
American Gods. American
Ooh.
Gods is one of the best books I've ever read, ever. And I would recommend that to anyone. Um, also, Brandon Sanderson, of course.
Mhm.
I'm a big Cosme nerd. That's something that I don't think everyone knows about me, but I love Brandon's books. And I love the simplicity of his prose. It gets across exactly what it intends.
Mm.
And that's important because his worlds are so rich and the magic is so well thought out that you can't have a super lyrical prose in that kind of story. It just wouldn't work. And I think his
Mm.
prose just nails exactly what he's trying to do. Another person that I also would pick would be Joe Abercrombie because he's hilarious
That would
and
be mine.
um, and I love the way he does character, and that's something that I wish I was better at. So to co-author a book with him would be so good because I feel like I could kind of inject what I am good at into a story and have his characterization, which is like he's the king of character at the end of the day.
Yeah. In banter, like who does it better than his
Yeah,
banter
yeah,
has made me laugh so loud from absolutely
so
nothing.
good.
Uh, Good question, Josh. Did you like American Gods the show?
No, I've got a funny thing about Neil Gaiman adaptation. So I loved Good Omens, the television show. Um, and I thought I wouldn't because I didn't really like the book that much. And I love Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, but I just didn't really enjoy Good Omens as a novel. And then with American Gods, I love the novel, absolutely love the novel, but I did not enjoy the TV show as much. I don't really know why. Like I remember kind of like enjoying the experience of watching it, but I just never went back to it after probably the first half of the first season. So I don't know.
Tim said, "Good Omens is such a funny show." Uh,
It's so good.
I have to check it out because I've seen like little bits between the two guys. They're really hilarious. But I
Yeah.
need to check it. Well, first, I want to read American Gods, check that show out
hmm
afterwards. Then I'll go to Good Omens. Um,
Yeah.
what's your favorite food?
Favorite food. Sushi,
Really?
pizza. Um, I love smoking meat. Like that's one of my hobbies at home.
What's your
So
favorite smoked meat?
I love brisket, dude. I love brisket.
Yes, dude.
I love it.
Just if you've got that right cut of brisket and it's smoked right, it just falls apart and just melts.
Yeah. And my first experience of that was going to in 2019, I was in the States for a month and a half with my buddies, and we kind of traveled across the country, and we had a big stop in Austin, and
Oh yeah.
like that was my first exposure to American barbecue, and I was just like, I've been hooked ever since. Like it was,
You went to
it
like
was incredible.
the like if that was a
The
convention,
heartlands.
that is the heartlands. Yes, dude.
Yeah,
I've yet to have
yeah.
Texas smoked meats, but we
Oh,
try to
so
incorporate here in Ohio, and it's
good.
okay. But I
Yeah.
need to get down to Texas and try real barbecue, or
Mhm.
Kansas. Kansas is another spot they do
Yeah.
barbecue here.
Yep.
What these are just really quick, kind of crazy
Yeah, no,
questions. What is your music favorites? What's your favorite genre and maybe your favorite band?
okay, 2 favorite genres, pop punk and metalcore.
Yes.
Favorite band of all time is unequivocally gonna be Fall Out Boy.
Okay,
I
yeah, dude, they're
love
great.
I love Fall Out Boy to death. They can't do anything wrong. Even the songs that suck are still good in my head.
Yeah.
Um, so I love that band. Big fan of like Day to Remember. I know I've talked to you about Devil Wears Prada before.
Yeah, dude. They
Parkway
live like
Drive.
right down the street from me. Like
Yeah,
half
yeah,
an
yeah.
hour.
Yeah, they're sick. I love those guys. Yeah, Parkway Drive. I know Ryan in the chat loves Parkway and Dayseeker as well. All these bands, like love them, love them.
What's your take
Yeah,
on
so yeah,
Breaking Benjamin?
I like Breaking Benjamin. They're a bit more kind of like mainstream rock to me. Like, but I still enjoy that side of metal. Like, I love that kind of metal. I love like kind of the more mainstream kind of side of Slipknot, for example, which I
Mhm.
think is kind of similar. So yeah, yeah, I love
Dude,
that kind of stuff.
that's my absolute favorite band, and typically I wouldn't
Love it.
pick a very mainstream
Mhm.
band. If you think they're mainstream, check their lyrics out.
Yeah. Oh, their
And
lyrics are great though. I will give
dude,
them that. Yeah.
absolutely incredible lyrics. Ithra, I call you Ithra. Cinnapalm, get up. You got to train those horses. You've got an important job. Good night. Thank you for hanging out, and thank
Nice to
you
see you.
for the wonderful gift. Um, all right, last little quick question. What kind of hobbies other than writing do you have and reading?
So I brew beer. That's probably like my big one.
That is a badass hobby,
Um,
dude.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I've recently just started brewing like beers in the world of the book. So I want to do like a series of those where I'll take a photo and like post them up on Instagram with the recipe for people to check out if they're into brewing. But yeah, I love brewing. I like that hobby because it engages the scientific part of my brain, which I feel like is a good thing because otherwise I'm just like drowning in, imagination a lot of the time.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes that can be tiring. But I
Yeah.
also am a musician. I've been a musician for many years. Yeah, I used to play in bands and by myself, and so yeah,
What do
I've
you
got
play?
guitars all over the room.
Oh, you're a
Guitar,
guitarist.
yeah, guitar and
And
vocals, yeah. So
you and me
yeah,
could jam. I'm a drummer, and that's probably other
sick.
than doing interviews. That's the best thing that I do in my life is I'm really good at
So you know what
drumming.
I think the perfect evolution of the internet is gonna be? Is gonna
What?
be where we could set up a video call, right, and have no latency and like practice together on two sides of the earth. Like that to
Dude,
me would be so sick.
if we get Wi-Fi that lag free and that clear, and I think we can. I think we can.
Hmm.
I think that you're right, man. My drumming style is between Lars Ulrich of Metallica and
Okay, yeah.
Chris Adler of Lamb of God.
Oh, I love Chris's drumming, man.
He's a human
Oh,
metronome, dude.
yeah. His footwork is phenomenal. Like
It's retarded. I don't even get it.
phenomenal. Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
I don't even get it.
phenomenal. I love it. I
If
love it.
if you
Another
guys
one you
ever
should check out is sorry, I cut you off.
no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say another drummer that you absolutely have to check out is Chris Turner from Ocean's 8 Alaska. He's a British drummer.
Ooh, Ocean's 8
If
Alaska.
you love Yeah, like if you love the kind of like drum work that is like real tight, real tight, like Chris's is, um, like Adler, like you would love his work. It's all over the shop in the sense that like the songwriting is mental, but very impressive. I'll send you some links after. But
Hell
yeah,
yes.
Chris Benner, he's so good. Yeah.
So I'll never be as clean as Chris, but I
Hmm.
can do a lot of the fills that he does, a lot of the footwork. Unless, guys, I'm 6'5", 250 pounds, and this guy's really skinny, like really kind of
Yeah.
just, to be a kind of fast drummer like he is, you have to kind of be a smaller
Yeah.
guy. But I
Yeah.
can get close. Never will I perfect it. Maybe if I tried hard enough and had no kids, but I do, 4 of them.
That's so cool, though. That's so
It
cool.
is. Yeah. So love that, man. Especially you're familiar with that type of music I play. All right. So what are you working on and what's coming up for you? What's next?
Okay, so at the end of the month, you'll hear a lot more about the second novella in the series. That's called The Child of the Greenwood, and it's like my attempt at fusing like Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn with like Tarzan, which sounds really weird.
No.
Um, and like body horror, and some other stuff. And that's kind of like that's another prequel story to this series. Hey Ed. Um, yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. That'll hopefully be out by January. It might be a bit later than that. We'll see. And then sometime next year will be book 2, and I'll reveal the title for that probably in October or November. So
The
yeah.
good news also that I'll announce because you're too humble to is you sold out of your hardcover signed editions on your
Oh,
web. Dude, that is awesome.
I didn't expect it. The reception's been amazing. Again, it's just another one of those super humbling experiences. So I'm grateful to everyone who's given it a shot.
You want to hear this is my personal story. I inquired about how to order one of those. I wasn't able to at that exact moment. I tune in the next
I
day
know.
and I'm like, oh, I knew it. I knew it was going to happen because they were so beautiful. But what
Oh,
can you
thanks, dude.
do? They're
But
just
I've still got
that
signed copies,
fun,
so when you're
man.
ready, let me know. Yeah.
I will. I definitely will.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. Um, this sorry, I lost my place. Suggested.
No, you're
Okay,
good. You're good.
so we've talked about what you're working on, what's coming up, the Child of the Greenwood
Hmm.
novella. Excited because I'll hopefully have everything read by then, ready for it.
That's
Probably
all right.
like hitting you up in the DM, like, hey, can I get that? Um,
That's cool.
Suggest to me an author that you've met during this journey that you'd like to see me chat with, maybe one I haven't chatted with.
I think you absolutely have to try and chat with Livia J. Elliott, who
Yeah, I have not
is
chatted with her.
I, I think she's a genius, honestly. I think she's one of those like real secret talents that more people need to catch on to. Her writing is phenomenal. She's got really deep philosophical understandings that she puts into her work that I think is fantastic. So yeah, it'd be so cool to hear her come onto the show.
All right, I'm definitely taking that advice. So I very rarely talk to anybody over an hour, let alone almost an hour and a half. So I have to
Thanks, man.
say, this was all that I thought it would be and more. Um, it's always my honor to have people on the channel that are as passionate or probably more passionate about what you're doing than I am reading it. I hope to be one day as passionate as about writing it as you are, because I think you're doing wonderful things. So I just
You
wanted
get
to say
there.
thank you, man. And you've taught me a lot. You inspire me. You inspire so many other people, and I'm there for whatever you do,
Thanks, man.
brother.
Thank you so much. It's been so good to chat.
It's always excellent. So I do apologize now that this is like getting to the end. My voice, I don't know, something
No, you're
happened
good.
right before I got on here. My voice has been a little off. I do apologize, but this has been one heck of a fun interview, live stream, part of your book tour. Where are you going next? Where's your next book tour stop?
That is a really good question. Next weekend, I'm chatting with Kayla over at Kay's Hidden Shelf.
Oh yeah,
Can't wait for that.
dude, she's
That's going to be
awesome.
so good. Yeah, and I've got a bunch of other things coming up on the tour, but I'm literally drawing a blank like right now, which is so annoying.
Well, you post it, man.
Let's
Then
see if I
I've
can
got you.
find
I'll
it.
double post it and all that fun stuff. I got your back, dude.
Yeah, thanks, dude. Yeah, we've got an indie book tour starting. Lisa and Chelsea who run that. That's kicking off on the 9th. And then yeah, the next live chat will be with Kayla. So look forward to that.
Yeah, I will be there. I will be asking questions and just enjoying it, man, because I do like to watch her live streams. She is one of the biggest
Oh, she's the
reasons I
best.
mine. Yeah, she's so good.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I've learned much more than I anticipated learning from you during this. So I appreciate that. Thank you for I
You're
know you
very
have a
kind.
family, so let them know I'm thankful for letting me borrow you for an hour and a half. I'm going to hit the hay, give the babies a kiss, and I'm going to fall asleep to an audiobook. Thank you so much,
Sounds good,
Joshua.
dude.
You guys go check out first go to his website, joshuawalkerauthor.com / what is it slash
Oh,
it's
that's
gone.
it. Just .com. Yeah.
Just okay, and you'll go and sign up for the newsletter. You'll get that free novella,
Yeah.
prequel novella.
Yeah.
There's also links to everything else possible down in the video description as well. Check it out. There's nothing there that you should be missing. If I am missing something, let me know. I have to check my schedule tomorrow. I'll post my next live interview. Until
Yeah.
then,
Sick.
Josh, again, thank you so much. Everybody that was here live, you guys are wonderful. Just seeing you guys chip away at the comments and questions, it just keeps it so fun for me. And I know that the author thinks the exact same.
Thank
And
you.
for anybody that watches the replay, thank you so much as well. Until next time, we'll see you. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Bye-bye, guys.